around the world. And yes, we will be recording this. So thanks very much for joining us today. Let me bring up my presentation and we'll get started. All right. So there we are. Hopefully you can see that okay.
Yes, all good.
Good. All right, cool. So thank you very much. We've got 1 hour scheduled this afternoon to talk about Era Group, the world's number one business franchise. It's not us saying that, but it's actually the Global Franchise Awards 25 that have kind of given us that stamp of approval. So we're very proud of that. What have we have planned for this afternoon? Quick, welcome and introductions, of course, and then I'll be talking about our value proposition to the customer. So we also want to talk about how Aero Group helps clients. What is it exactly we do? How do we do it? Then, of course, we want to talk about the franchise opportunity in a lot more detail, really to lay out what your journey could look like, depending on who you are and what your professional experience is, to try and understand how you could fit in and build a wonderful consulting business for yourself. And then the highlight of this afternoon, I'm sure, is we have Stefano Novarini with us, one of our esteemed franchise partners in Italy. And Stefano has been with the business for a long time, and he has volunteered to share his era journey, if you will, talking about how he joined the business many years ago, how he built his own consulting practice, and where he wants to take it next. Now, we will try to address some Q&A at the end. So if you have questions throughout everything that I present or Stefano presents, can you please use the Zoom chat just to put your question in, and I'll try and pick up the questions together with Stefano at the end, okay? And then, of course, we'll talk about next steps if you want to continue after this webinar. But hopefully you'll get a lot of value out of this 1 hour, and we'll do our best to give you lots of content. Now, who's talking to you? Just very briefly, my name is Arndt Halbach. I am the global head of franchise development at Era Group. I've been with the business for 18 years now, joined in 2007. Time flies when you're having fun. It's been a wonderful journey. Actually bringing the brand into many different markets over that period, being in charge of our EMEA business, etc. But yeah, today, together with my team, we look for the right partners across the 60 countries that we operate in. So that's also a very fascinating role. And yeah, hopefully from those 18 years, I have a lot of insights into how this business works and how you can make it work for yourself. Because it is really a people business, and that's why we are actually really excited to have you on the call today, and hopefully over the next couple of days and weeks, get to meet you also as a person and understand what you're looking for in this potential partnership. Now, of course, the best thing would be for everybody to kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about where you're coming from, what you've done. Now, we don't have time for that with over 20 people on the call, but we have, I think, three quick questions that we have prepared. And you should have a little poll window coming up on your screen now. And if you could just answer those three questions: where are you coming in from, just from a geography point of view? What's your professional background? Just choose the category that is kind of the most appealing to you. It's not an exact science. I know for some of you, there may not be the perfect category. Choose the one that's the closest to your reality. And then the last one, if you were to join our group, what roles would you focus on? Because I'm sure some of you would want to focus on your sales and marketing skills. Other people maybe come in with a more generalist approach or solution delivery. So let's see. It's always interesting to see who's on the call. I can see the results coming through live here. Fantastic. All right. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Now, do we go and I think we can probably end it now. Okay. Are we sharing the results now, Emma?
We are, yes.
Okay, great. So if everybody sees this, so we can see our Latin America and Europe kind of equally represented, and the UK as well. So thanks everybody. Um, I saw somebody from South Africa on the call earlier, so maybe I don't know. But professional backgrounds, yeah, we've got 14% CEOs, 29% procurement supply chain, 40% engineering operations, 29% sales and marketing. That's more than usual. And then IT and somebody's already running their own business. Congratulations. And that's reflected in this last question, which I always find the most interesting, right? Some of you, 43% say I would focus on client acquisition probably if I came into Era Group. Equal amount, almost equal amount of people say client and project management will be my focus. So there's the farmer and the hunter, but both groups really more on the commercial side of the business. We've got one person that says I would like to be a solution delivery specialist. So we're really interested to hear on what subject matter that would be. And another couple of people saying generalist approach would be probably the most likely. So doing all of it. And that's great. Thank you very much. Just shows us, where to focus maybe some of the presentation later on. But, again, Era Group is all about the people. It's all about those wonderful smiley faces that you see on this slide. Um, and some of the people that you've already seen on the video. And we'll try to find out together in the next 50 minutes if this is an environment that you could thrive in, that you could enjoy, that you think would give you a platform to build your own consulting business. Okay, good. So let's dive in. So when we talk about the value proposition, let's first think about, is there a need for this service? I mean, we've been going for more than 30 years, so obviously, there has been demand for this service. But is this something, if you are looking at joining us today for the next 10, 15, 20 years, is there going to be a need for Era Group to help companies? And we believe very much so. And what we see in our dialogue with clients and future clients is that every manager, every CEO, CFO around the world, we're all operating in an era of heightened risk, more volatility, more uncertainty. I think we heard this VUCA environment that we're dealing with, which really means that, clients see their supply chains disrupted. They see the Trump tariffs and things like that being introduced, labor shortages across many of our markets that we operate in. Yeah, complexity of the supply relationships and contracts, working capital requirements, energy costs have obviously been crazy in, most parts of Europe and many other parts of the world. Um, and so, yeah, sustainability plays into all of that in many of the markets that we operate. So it is a very complex environment for SME decision makers. And I think what we have developed is a solution that makes it easy for sorry, let me just get rid of this, for our clients to actually decide to work with us because we can come in with very tactical projects at first, helping them in very concrete ways within their business. And you see some of those tiles here, some of those kind of categories, if you will, whether that's raw materials or telco or medical supplies or chemicals. So we can come in, be very specific about certain things, but also in the relationship that we build with our clients, we do so much more to help them address that, uncertainty and that volatility that they have to manage. So it really becomes, beyond cost optimization. It's really how we talk about our service, helping them with process improvement, helping them with things like digital transformation, and certainly with sustainable procurement and many aspects of that. So um, yeah, it's definitely something that we see with more than 1,000 people around the world. Clients are engaging in that conversation, and it's something that will not go away, right? Helping companies just be more efficient and save money is a value proposition that is strong. Now, one of the very important aspects of our work is that today, with more than 1,000 specialists around the world, we can actually approach every client with this holistic approach to say, we can not just help you in your energy and your freight and your telecommunications. Mr. Client, let's first assess your needs very holistically and think about, based on your data and where you spend money, your requirements, where we can help you. We can then benchmark what we see within the client's organization with what we see with, thousands of other business to create a tailored solution for the client. So every client is different. And that's something that you will find as you talk to us and talk to franchise partners in the business over the next couple of weeks, is that that's one of the excitements, is that, it never gets boring. Every client project is very unique, and you get this real opportunity as an entrepreneur to create real value and get paid for that value. I think that's really exciting that we have a value proposition that is so aligned between the client, the suppliers, and us to really drive well, tangible value. And that's really something that we enjoy. Now, one of the things that people get a bit confused about is when they think Era Group, they think, okay, so they must be super professional at negotiating the best price for their clients, right? That's the first assumption that many clients also have. They go like, oh, okay, so you're going to come in and just find a better price for me in the marketplace. And we say, well, that's part of what we do, but it's not really what we do. So when we talk about holistically approaching procurement challenges for our clients, we talk about five P's of procurement. And really, the price is only the tip of the iceberg, is the policies, products, providers, processes, which means our specialists come in and really think about what are the suppliers they're using, what are the specifications that the client gives me on their packaging or on their logistics or on their IT, uh, and how have they come up with those specifications, right? Oftentimes, many of you will understand this from your own corporate experience. An organization grows organically over 10 or 50 or even 100 years, right? We have a lot of family-owned clients that have been in business for over 100 years. And then, there's a certain way of packaging that you have defined, and that's working really well. And that's the specification that your team or your procurement organization has always taken to the market, never questioning the specifications, never questioning whether there are smarter ways of doing it. So, a lot of what we do is actually looking at really from an outside perspective, is the way they are organizing themselves across all those different cost items the best way of doing it? And I think Stefano will give you some really good examples of that from his category later on. But that's really important to understand. So it's not an easy, like for like comparison of pricing, because there are online tools that can help clients probably find a price in the marketplace, and that's not really what we do. And we're so confident in our ability to really bring that value through this five P's of procurement that we still to this day live up to our promise to say, hey, Mr. Client, we'll come in, and if we don't find savings, we will charge you absolutely nothing. Not a single dollar, not a single euro, not a single pound. We want to share in your success. So what we typically do is we share the success with our clients 50-50. So if we generate 100,000 in savings, we get 50,000, client gets 50,000. It's very simple. And we have flexible contract terms. Our standard term now is 3 years. So typically we would share the savings with a client over a 36-month period. Sometimes it's only 24 months, sometimes it's 48, depends on the category, on the solutions that we're discussing, etc. And throughout that contract term, there will be certain milestone-based payments that the client is making. So if you're wondering, oh, does that mean I have to wait 3 years to get paid? No, absolutely not. Don't worry about it. All right. Across certain milestones throughout this relationship, you will get, staged payments from your customer, but it will always be based on performance. Okay. Now, of course, we also have flexible pricing options. If your client says, well, I don't want to save money, I actually want you to do something very strategic for me or help me with a sustainability policy, writing a strategy, whatever. You can also do that on a fixed fee basis or hybrid agreements. We've got all sorts of models that we would give you as a template. Okay. But I think living up to this promise to say we go into organizations, help them run better businesses, and they take no risk. That is absolutely wonderful. I can tell you 18 years, I've seen hundreds and thousands of clients trust in that relationship because we make it so easy for them to engage with Era Group. I think that's really one of the big benefits. Now, just want to make sure that you understand where our market is. Now, interestingly, so we have a lot of sales professionals and people with sales and marketing focus on the call today. For each of you, probably the market will be slightly different because each of you will bring your own experience, your own industry knowledge, etc., and your own networks. So it's not like, you have to actually go after the market that we tell you to go after. But I just want to show you where we find success as an organization. And if we start on the right-hand side, first of all, let's look at how big our clients are, because you see a lot of the big brands on our marketing materials, IKEA or Unilever or Avis Budget, right? Those are wonderful global players that we've had the privilege, of working with over the years. But they're not our typical clients. Our typical clients are actually what you see in this pie chart. By revenue, 35% of our clients are actually small businesses with less than 20 million pounds in annual turnover. Okay, that's not procurement volume, that's their revenue, less than 20 million. Then we have this 25% of 20 to 50 million, another 15, 50 to 100. So 3 out of 4 Aero Group clients are businesses that turn over less than 100 million pounds a year. Okay, so they're decent sized organizations. We really would say, mid-market segment from probably 25, 50 million to 500 million is really the sweet spot. That's where we make the most money also with our clients, right? If you go much lower than 20 million, you just don't make that much fees, of course, for a similar amount of work. But so it really works for all sizes of clients. And what you see on the left-hand side is it also works for all industries. So we have a strong focus on manufacturing. 1/3 of our clients are in the manufacturing space, but that's just something that has developed over time. It's not, there isn't a specific reasons for it from a market perspective. Second biggest is retail and wholesale, and then professional services, so engineering offices, law firms. Then we have our healthcare clients, hospitals, elderly homes, doctors' clinics. That's all wonderful. Educational clients like schools and universities, built environments, there are construction clients, banking clients, hotels and restaurant chains, agriculture and food. So really, there is no limit to the type of organization that you can target here. And I think again, from a sales and marketing perspective, for all of you that are thinking about this value proposition in this way, it's absolutely wonderful. If you've been selling a certain product, service, software, whatever, often you have a certain market that you're addressing that is quite well defined in terms of there's a couple of hundred, couple of thousand target clients. Well, here there's virtually hundreds of thousands of target clients because, let's say you're in Belgium, Olivier, I'm going to pick you as an example, right? It's not the biggest economy, but there are still tens of thousands of potential ERA clients. So we're only scratching the surface of that particular market. And that's really true for any given, economy. So big opportunity for you to come in and define your strategies and go after clients that you enjoy. Now, just briefly talking about, well, what's our competition look like, right? Actually, in this area between the 10 million to a couple of 100 million, we're actually fishing in a pond that is huge, but it's still too small for Deloitte or KPMG or Ernst& Young, right? EY or McKinsey and people like that. They don't really go into that space. Over 500 million or billion, yes, you will find the Accentures and the Big Four, you will find them there. And they also offer cost management and procurement consultancy services. And obviously, they do that also quite well. Now, they don't do it on a success fee. I can tell you that. They will have small part of their fees maybe as a success component, but certainly not 100%. And then we also, of course, have local competition that we would call niche firms that are maybe really specialized on logistics or specialized on energy and utilities, right? They can be really good in what they do, but what they cannot offer is this broad array of cost areas, right? That I talked about earlier. So we can put the client first and say, wherever you need help, Mr. Client, we've got 1,000 specialists around the world. Don't worry, we'll find a solution. We can work on that particular challenge with you. Whereas a local firm, maybe they do one or two things really well. So it's a very different position. Okay. So definitely something that we believe is, we're well positioned in that mid-market segment. And what that looks like, just to give you an idea of, how our clients benefit from this. This is one of hundreds of case studies that we have. Company called Godebo. They actually, manufacture those security systems around the world, more than 6,000 employees. So they're quite a big client actually of ours. And the relationship started in Scandinavia originally with two franchise partners who reached out to Godebo, and we helped them in Sweden, we helped them across Scandinavia. And then over the years, really became a pan-European project where we worked across more than 20 different cost categories, many countries, and on average, we've been able to save them 20%. And you see in some cases, like their IT, we've saved them more than 50%, which sounds really almost incredible, right? But it's just a reflection of what I talked about earlier, the 5 P's of procurement. You don't find 58% saving on IT by getting a better price for their AWS servers or or their IT hardware. It's just not possible. So you're going to have to think long and hard about the specifications, what they're doing, and how maybe other solutions can do the same thing for the client, but also across the other categories. I think so. Just one example of, again, hundreds, actually thousands of examples that we could give you, and it works really well. And one thing I enjoy about it is that this is one of the examples where the client hasn't stayed with us just for the 3 years. They've actually moved Era Group into many different markets, added categories over time, so that we've been working with Gunnebo for, I think, 10 years in a row, doing more and more work with them. So that's really very exciting about, I think, Era Group, that you can build long-lasting relationships with your clients. So far, so good. So we talked about the value proposition to the customer. Now I want to shift the focus on the franchise model. So your business model, if you decided to join as a partner. First of all, let's be clear. I hope you all understand this. The fantastic thing that we've developed here over the years is that we have a very collaborative model. We people, the dark blue people here on the left-hand side, who we call key account managers. Those are the people, many of you on the call today, that focus on client acquisition and client management, right? You don't want to be in front of a spreadsheet and working with suppliers on pricing and solutions and the specifications of the packaging for that client. You want to focus on the relationship and on driving that commercial success. So that's 50% of the work, and the other 50% are our specialists, who you can use in all the projects to actually do the delivery. So those are the people that enjoy the procurement side of things, that enjoy the numbers and the analytics and driving really that very, very detailed level. So and you can work together in what we call joint venture. And so just to give you an example on what that looks like, I just have a simple relationship. We have a client here who wants to save money, and let's say they saved 120,000 euros on a project. They split that with Era 50/50, right? So we do a saving split of the 120,000 with that client, and oh, so they keep 120,000, sorry, and we get 120,000, and that is split between the key account manager who's done the sale and the energy specialist in this example, who is actually delivered the savings on energy. So we've saved to 240,000 over the contract term, and we're sharing that. Now, that's a simplified model because usually what happens is you don't just sell one project to a client. As I said earlier, you want to do a lot more than that. So what you probably end up with is you, as a key account manager, you have the client relationship, and in the initial batch, you may be doing three, four, or five different projects and then adding more and more. So for each of those projects, you're now bringing in the right specialists, and they do the fee sharing with you based on our joint venture model. So all of a sudden, as a key account manager, you're not getting just 60,000 euros from that client relationship. You'd be making 300,000 because you've got five projects working with the same client. So that's kind of how the remuneration model works. It's very clear, very fair. Also internally, we stay with a very simple 50/50 between the commercial and the sales and marketing and the delivery folks. And that's really worked for us really well across more than 30 years now. It's a very good model. And what it leads to is, if you think about your earnings model then as a consultant within Era Group, is I said you get certain payments along the delivery of that project over the 3 years. So once you start ramping up your business in that initial startup year, you kind of pile projects and clients on top of one another. So after a year or two, you end up with multiple projects, multiple income streams, where all of a sudden your consulting business is made up not just of one or two clients, it's possibly made up of 10, 20, 30 different clients that give you, possibly we have franchise partners who deal with more than 100 projects in parallel. Okay, so we've got 8 projects here in this example. But the point is, what you're building is something that ramps up really nicely, that can scale to levels of income that are very significant, and then also becomes a recurring revenue. Where if you look at 2026 as an Era partner and you've been in this business for a year or two, you already know that next year you're going to be making X amount of dollars, even if you don't do anything new. right? Because you've got all those projects that will be delivering cash flow for your business. So that is really a very nice way of invoicing your clients once you've built up your business. So that's why many of our partners stay around for 10, 15, or even 20 years, because once you've built it up, it just becomes a wonderful, very, very comfortable revenue model. Now, let's talk a little bit about your journey as a partner. And that journey starts for everybody in the same way. First and foremost, you would go, if once you sign an agreement with us and you decide to join the global team, we'll take you through our Era Group Academy. And Era Group will offer you a 2-week foundational training to start with. So everybody around the world, regardless of where you're coming from, you would fly to the UK, to our headquarters just south of London in beautiful Kent. And then you would go through your 2 week of foundational training. And from there, your journey starts into your onboarding, mentoring, ramp up training. There's a whole raft of trainings. Don't want to go into the detail, but just to say that we have an academy team that offers all of this for you and will make sure that you learn how to run the business. And then what happens is if you want to be a successful key account manager in this business, after foundational training, you need to kind of put your strategy in place and execute on that strategy with regards to what are going to be your routes to market. How do you get yourself in front of clients? You will need marketing support from us, so we'll briefly talk about that. And then we have something called SpendView, which is a fantastic sales tool that you can leverage once you get yourself in front of prospective clients to validate where the opportunities are. So I briefly just want to talk a little bit about what that looks like. So routes to market. Of course, when you start, I think it would be great if you had some contacts in your personal and professional network that you can tap into that will, at least have a coffee with you and hear you out and just be interested in what you do. But really, what we're trying to work on with you is to give you multiple routes to market that you can execute on, and it doesn't become just a one-off success. It becomes a replicable process for yourself. So targeted selling, for example, on LinkedIn, social selling, email, direct marketing, and networking and business events. That's also a process that you need to actually nail for yourself and have in your calendar regularly. Building out networks of business introducers, also working with other Era consultants around the world to leverage the international clients. And obviously, over time, our business will very much float for you based on referrals from existing clients. So the beauty is it's very easy to engage with Era Group for a client because there's no risk, right? No saving, no fee. But also it's very easy for a client to refer us to other companies where they know the CEO or CFO, right? Because again, then they're not taking a risk to say, oh, well, I spent a lot of money on those consultants, but they really never delivered anything for me. So referrals ultimately will be your long-term success, but all of those routes to market very important. And you'll be guided by our marketing team that will co-create that strategy for you, and that will really help you kind of tap into the tools that we make available to our network when it comes to marketing, right? Because starting your own business is never easy, but with Era Group, you can be out of the starting blocks immediately and you can cut through all the noise. You will have everything that you need. There's a whole kind of strategy playbook that we make available to you on the different elements of marketing. So first of all, where do you want to go in terms of your routes to market? But then how do you leverage digital selling? How do you leverage networking in this consultative selling approach? All of this will work on. And you've got limited marketing, limitless marketing material, whatever you need, presentations, case studies, as I said earlier, Gunnebo, you've got hundreds of other case studies that you can put in front of your client, white papers on thought leadership, webinars, etc. So you don't have to invent anything, right? So you're basically really buying a business that's ready to go. And we've done all the heavy lifting for you over the last 30 years to create all of this that's ready to go. And finally, um, we don't have time for this today. I don't want to, talk too long. I want to hand you over to Stefano in a minute. But one of the really attractive things in our sales process is that you can actually, in the sales process, you can offer real value to your client already, where in your first conversation with the client, you can say, well, look, Mr. Client, if you will allow us to look at some of your data, we can actually put that through our SpendView software, which is our bespoke in-house solution for spend analysis. And then in 2 weeks' time, I can come back to you with a dashboard and we can actually look at the opportunities that we see in your P&L. And all of this is absolutely cost-free, risk-free for the client, but it allows you to have a really good sales conversation with the client and take them through a point where they will take the decision and be very impressed with what you bring. So we'll talk about SpendView again at a later stage. And just to say, and I didn't, well, I just saw one person put their hand up to say, I want to become a specialist in the network potentially. So, of course, for you, the same foundational training would apply. So, you also come to our academy for the 2 weeks, you kick off your Era Group business alongside your colleagues, and then your path to success is slightly different, right? You also be very focused on how do you get yourself into the network as a specialist? How do you learn and then deliver on our methodology? And how do you leverage our technology that we make available to you when it comes to the project delivery? Now, just very briefly, want to touch on, because I think that's relevant for everyone. We have an internal platform, communication, we call Era App. And there you've got everybody around the world at your fingertips. So if you're looking for specialists, you'll find them there. You can put out requests for certain projects. All the new clients, new projects are being shared there. So it's the collaboration platform really. And for a specialist, it's very important to get your name out there, collaborate with other specialists, do webinars about your specialism, and of course deliver the first projects. Now, very briefly, how do you deliver a project? Let's say the key account manager has sold the client a project in your category. Let's just say that's packaging. Okay, then what you do as a specialist, you will take a couple of weeks to just analyze how the client is dealing with packaging at the moment. So this analysis takes a lot of time because you want to really fully understand how they're spending their money, what are the specifications, what are the supplier agreements looking like, right? Really analyze in a lot of details the process they're using for their packaging, talk to people in the organization to fully understand it. And once you've completed that, you will come back to the client with what we call the situation report. Very important document to kind of lay the foundation for how we are going to move on and measure savings later on. Then you enter the second phase, which is the research phase. This is where you would then work with the suppliers and with the market to, on behalf of your client to find better solutions. And as I said earlier, this could be a tender to find a better price for the same packaging. It could be reinventing the packaging solution together with one of the very, good suppliers. Think about, challenge the client on how they do things and maybe reinvent a process that will allow them to have less stock, etc. So all of that you will compile into an option report, and then you present that option report to your client alongside the key account manager, of course, who will be there. You help the client implement the solution. So those are the three active parts of the project that typically take anywhere between 2-3 months to maybe 4 or 6 months. Once the solution is fully implemented, then really the wonderful period of the monitoring kicks in, where over the next 3 years now, you're measuring the savings for your client. So you're saying, okay, on paper, we have found 100,000 euro saving on your packaging. Now let's make sure that we actually collect that 100,000 every year by making sure that everything really happens, that the staff of your client are really using the new specifications, that the suppliers are behaving and not putting any price increases up, etc. So methodology very important for our specialists to understand and really live and breathe because we share that around the world. Every project is delivered to the exact same methodology, same deliverables, so it becomes a very seamless and professional experience for our clients. I think that's very important. All right, enough of me. I'm now going to hand you over to Stefano, who will talk about his Era journey, and then we'll come back at the end, hopefully, for a couple of questions and talk a little bit about next steps.
All right. Thank you, Arne. Let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, coming up, yeah.
Okay, that's good. So, hello everyone. First of all, thanks for joining the webinar. With my presentation today, I would like to do my best to try to share with you some insight from my journey with Era Group. And I hope by the end to be able to give you a better idea of how the Era business model looks like, not only from the franchisor, but also from a partner's perspective, and whether it might be the right fit for you too or not. And why not? Probably also convince some of you to try also the category specialist path and not only sales. But let me start with some information about me. I'm 60 years old, living just outside Milan in Italy. I'm married, and we have a 20-year-old son who is currently studying and living in the Netherlands. Before Era, I spent 25 years in executive roles at multinational companies, and then 13 years ago, I made the decision to join Era. Since then, I have mainly worked as a category specialist, focusing on telecom category. However, I still enjoy bringing in new clients through my network. But once they are on board, I usually like to hand over the project management to my colleagues, since I can focus on what I think I can do best, which is diving deep into the telecom category. But let me also tell you why did I join Era Group. Let's start with the personal side. At the time, you have to know that I was under serious stress, like probably many other managers in high-pressure roles. I was constantly traveling, barely seeing my family, and always exhausted. Weekends and holidays felt more like recovery mission than actual rest. I was not enjoying life anymore. On top of that, in the last company I worked for, I was not happy for the first time in my life, and that was a wake-up call, as I like to say. I also started gaining weight, just didn't feel like myself anymore. At the time, I was only 47, but I started feeling much older, and I knew that something had to change. So fast forward to today was different. Honestly, I can say everything because I feel more relaxed, more in control of my life, and much more happy. I can now spend real quality time with my family. I actually enjoy my job. And yes, I don't take Mondays anymore. I have also got time to recharge my batteries during the weekends and holidays. And I have even managed to get back into a healthy routine. Let's also talk about the professional side, which was equally important for me. First of all, you have to know that living the corporate world was really scary. I had zero consulting experience at the seen friend struggling with the transition. However, when I found Era, I realized that their model could really help me in starting the business because they had the tools, the support, and the structure, has been explained by Arn, that I needed to start quickly without having to build everything from scratch. However, getting started was not easy, but at the same time, it was very exciting. I began by reaching out to my personal network, looking for potential clients, and to start integrating myself into the Italian Era networks. And let me say that approach worked well, and I started seeing results pretty quickly. But at the same time, I was also figuring out which categories were matching my background and expertise. And even if my background was in office supplies and printing industry, I found that telecom was actually a better fit because at that time, no one in Italy was really focusing on that category, even if clients were asking for it. So I decided to jump into the category, and today telecom is one of the top performing categories in Italy. I also collaborate with other partners on the category, sharing knowledge, collaborating on projects, and keep pushing each other to do better. But coming back to the story, the big challenge was to develop the category. Since, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't come from the telecom industry and I had a lot to learn and very fast. Very fast because, in my opinion, the first year is super important in Era because it's when your reputation within the network is built. If you deliver great results, meet deadlines, and achieve strong savings since the beginning, you will quickly earn the trust of both your network and your clients, opening doors to even more opportunities. But at the opposite, if you don't do well, then it can be very hard to get involved again in future projects. So what I did was to team up with experienced senior partners for my first project, learning from them. Yes, I had to split the income with them, but it paid off in the long term because I learned a lot from them. I delivered great results since the beginning and quickly built a solid reputation to the network. Just to give you also some figures, since then I've managed multiple projects generating over than 10 million euros in savings with an average saving rate of 35%. I'm now also part of a European team working on technology and what we call IT and telecom project. We call it technology group, including international projects. And I'm also exploring daily new areas, like, for instance, Internet of Things, which is opening up some really exciting opportunities. But let's move to the next slide. And before we dive in, I want to get ahead of a question that I get asked a lot during my past presentation. How many projects can a specialist actually manage? That was a really frequent question that I got. Well, here in the slide, so I decided to put a snapshot of my 2024 consolidated numbers. This includes both ongoing projects from previous years and new ones that kicked off during the years. Remember, as explained by Jan, that ERA projects typically run for about 36 months, sometimes even longer. In fact, I got clients who have been working with me for over 10 years. But returning to the numbers, you can see that in 2024, I managed 22 projects in total. 10 carried over from previous years and 12 new projects launched during the year. As I mentioned earlier, some projects naturally phase out during the year while new ones begin, and the real trick is finding the right balance between the two, so the things can stay manageable and very efficient. In terms of value, those 22 projects represented about 3.3 million euro in annual spend, with savings of around 1.2 million euro. So as you can see, it's very important that you don't need to manage hundreds of projects to generate a solid revenue. However, let's say this result comes after 13 years of experience, and of course, depend also on the category and the expertise. So in some cases, numbers might look different, but in any case, as I just said, you don't need to manage hundreds of projects. And one big lesson that I've also learned is that balance is everything, because keeping a healthy mix of ongoing and new projects helps in keeping a stable income and gives you room to grow by focusing on higher value opportunities. On the other side, if you start taking too much projects, that can affect quality and limit your ability to develop new business. So that's why I always give priority to quality over quantity. And I often team up with other telecom experts to deliver great results without overloading myself. But now, moving on to the next slide, I would also like to share some examples of some huge savings that we have achieved in new subcategories like Internet of Things that I was mentioning before. As an example, take a look at customer number 4 on this slide, where we achieve an incredible 90% of savings. And trust me, this was not because of some kind of magic trick or ultra-aggressive negotiation. The real reason behind these savings is actually much more interesting. And this is just related to smart analysis. This is what really happened. In this category, you have to know that very often clients tend to overlook this cost because they seem very small on a per unit basis. We are talking about SIM cards that cost just a few euros, sometimes even less than €1. And these are often used in services that get resold at a much higher price. And because the cost seems small, the clients don't pay much attention to them. On top of that, most clients also don't have the time or internal resources to really dig into the usage and figure out what they actually need. So that's where we come in. With a solid analysis and deep market knowledge, we can uncover huge opportunities. In this case, in fact, the client was paying for a lot of inactive SIM cards with no traffic, no usage, just sitting there generating cost. And they had no idea at all. Well, after sharing my journey with ERA, I also would like to tell you a little bit about what's next for me, because unfortunately, I still got some years before retirement. And let's start with how I'm growing the business without sacrificing balance. Depending on your role, you have to know that there are different ways to grow your business. If you are focused, for instance, on client acquisition, the only limit is the sky. On the other side, working as a project manager or category specialist, as I was saying before, you have to know that you cannot manage an infinite number of clients and projects. So in that case, what are the options for growth? Some of my colleagues have decided to expand their business by hiring people, which is great. For me, for instance, I have chosen a different path, but simply because I didn't want to go back to managing people full time. I still want to keep a good balance between work and personal life. However, that said, even if I have built a great income, much better than I originally expected when I joined ERA, I'm still looking for ways to grow my income. And this is what I'm doing now. First, I focus on higher value projects. So instead of taking on more projects, I'm using the skills and the reputation that I built over the years to target bigger and more profitable opportunities. So in this way, I can increase my income without increasing my workload. Second, I collaborate with colleagues. Remember at the beginning, we were stressing the word collaboration, which is very important. Whenever possible, I offer my expertise on their projects, take a share of the fee, and avoid the heavy operational work. It's a win-win where I can keep my involvement light while still boosting my earnings. And third, I still like to explore new categories. And this one was a bit unexpected, but is working well. Some time ago, for instance, I started looking into new opportunities in areas that were not yet covered in Italy. And that's how I got into the commercial property rental category, thanks to a professional connection that I made in recent years. This person convinced me to explore the category together, and let me say that the results have been really eye-opening. To give you an idea, our very first projects in this category brought a saving of €500,000 just on a single building negotiation. And that was enough to convince me that this category has serious potential. And funny enough, it even convinced and changed my mind about managing people because I now manage that person and recently also added another team member to help me with sales. But looking ahead, another key priority for me is also to keep enjoying what I do. Over the years, I built not just a business, but also real friendship with my colleagues. We have shared some amazing moments together, and the photo on this slide is a typical example that we got from our recent country meeting we had in Italy, in Florence. Well, all right, we are almost at the end of my presentation, but before I leave you, I also would like to share with you a few key takeaways from my ERA journey. So in the next couple of slides, I have tried to put together some important tips that I think would be valuable to keep in mind if you decided one day to join the ERA family. So here is my suggestion. First, explore all the roles. You said at the beginning that most of you are more interested in sales and project management, but I also always suggest to try all the roles to understand the full picture. Then after a while, I also highly recommend to specialize in one specific role when you have a clearer picture. It will help you growing faster and more efficiently. Second, don't try to go alone. The real strength of ERA, I repeat it another time, is in collaboration. Partners bringing their unique expertise to the table to create the best possible results. Leverage your strengths and work with others. It always pays off. And third, quality is everything. Clients and partners always expect top results, deliver on time, be reliable, and aim for excellence. That is what opens the door to always more opportunities. And if you keep these things in mind, you will easily set yourself up for success at ERA. And finally, if there is one thing that I really come to appreciate in the ERA network is the importance of staying humble and curious. Success at ERA is not about going solo. It's about teaming up with other people, other partners, and working together toward a shared goal. The best projects always come from, another time I repeat it, collaboration. All right, that was my last slide. Thanks again for your time. I really hope this gave you a clearer picture of how the business works and what it can offer. And now ready to answer to any question if there are any.
Perfect. Stefano, thank you very much. Very impressed. I'm sure, first of all, this really underlines what I said earlier about our network of specialists, right? We have people like Stefano. Would you all feel comfortable putting Stefano in front of your client with that expertise? I'm sure you would, right? So that's really cool. Yeah, and you're getting some great feedback there from people, so that's good. I don't know if we have any questions. Let's see. Fernando has got a couple of questions. What is the limit to, yeah, the question you already anticipated. What's the limit of projects that we can do in parallel? No, also limit to the initiatives. So he says he really enjoys innovation and proposing new ideas. Is that part of the role, or is that going too far at times? How do you see that, Stefano?
Well, let me say that our business is working well because it's very clear. When you work with a client, you identify the project, identify their needs, identify a real benchmark to calculate the savings and to calculate our fee. However, that's not a limit. That's a starting point. Then when you start working with a client, my point of view, that you are really open to give your ideas, to put innovation and proposing alternatives, because that's part of our process. Because as I say, we have a general contract that usually lasts for 36 months. But one of the reasons why I'm still working with clients after 10 years is because apart giving the normal expectation from our project, I also giving them some other added value with new ideas, supporting them and going ahead of the normal project. So yes, there is possibility to get involved more but start, as a suggestion, start with a normal process, normal business, which is working very, very well. Then you can add anything you want.
Okay. Another question that we got is there a minimum required, whether it's clients or time dedicated, etc.? So I understand that as you want to maybe join us as a part-time role. I mean, we don't really have a contractual minimum where you say you need to make X, right? There are people in this business that are working part-time. It's obviously not a recommendation, right? Stefano, you've gone all in, and you talked about how difficult that decision was for you.
Yes.
But then once you go all in, you then actually give it 110%, and then it also works 110%.
Even more.
Yeah,
More
exactly. Yeah.
Probably you can do that way after some years. But the first years, as I said during my presentation, are the most important. So if you want to join ERA, the first years are very crucial. So you have to dedicate the maximum time that you can dedicate, maximum effort. Then if you want to slow down after some years when you have a consolidated business, you can do it, but not at the beginning. Beginning is very important. The starting period is very important.
Yeah, agree with that. So look, and the other question is, what is expected of someone in the first 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year? And I think that's with regards to how many projects, clients, but also maybe revenue can be and should be generated in that first year. That's a really good question that leads me over, I think, to the next steps, which, I will just share one slide with you and talk a little bit about this. We have another question. And Shirish asks a question. Okay, the goal is to have a kind of fully self-running business using teams and colleagues that work, with my vision to manage the clients. Is that possible, and how soon can I start to implement this? Well, you said there are some people in this business who actually employ a big team. Nothing stops you from having 10 people work in your practice, and you are the manager and leading that team. It's not Stefano's choice. And okay.
Change it a little bit, as I said.
Yeah, you changed
because
it
I
already.
see some results.
Yeah. All right. Okay, good. So, the clients do you generally need to analyze in order to sign one? Yeah. Another question from Heidi about, conversion rates. I guess maybe we'll pick that one and then we go to the next steps. Conversion rate. How many clients do you need to kind of talk to and maybe run an opportunity assessment or get to a proposal, Stefano, to sign one?
Well, depend on yourself, depend on your ability in sales, depend on some luck, as I said. From my point of view, the most important part is to build a solid pipeline in a continuity way. Then you can do 2 clients in 4 visits. At the same time, you can do it in 20 visits. 1 year can be different from another one. But what is important, is that you don't need you just don't need as a specialist to work on many projects, but also as a key account manager, you don't need to get on board too many clients. With 1 or 2 clients per year, you can already get an interesting income. Then it's up to you how many visits are able to, how many meetings you are able to arrange. Talking about conversion rate, let's say between 1 to 5, 1 to 10, it should be usually an average rate, we can say.
Yeah.
But depending on and there are so many variables to consider that it's not easy to give you an answer.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, if you think about it, sometimes people get irritated. There's no real reason for a client to say no to this proposal, right? We're saying we will come in, we will take all the risk. It costs you nothing. We have 1,000 specialists. When can we start? And still, a lot, some clients will not sign with you. So if you expect to sign 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 originally, and then I think the art is, and I'm sure you will appreciate that, is to stay close to those people that have said no initially, because it's not no, never. It's no, not right now, because we are doing the year-end accounts. We've just gone through an M&A transaction, or maybe I'm actually a CFO who's been with this company for 8 years, and I'm a bit scared that you're going to expose things that I should have done earlier. So one of the magic things is then you follow that person. Actually, that person, the CFO, when they change their job, she will call you and say, "Hey, I'm now with company B. Come in and talk again, Heidi, because now is the right time to do this." Right? So there's a lot that we can talk about when it comes to building out your routes to market, but also over time reaping the rewards from all the people that have originally maybe not been ready.
No, yeah, you're correct. Because I got client signing the contract after 2 weeks that I met them. Some clients that decided to sign it after 2 years. So it's just a question of continuing maintaining the pipeline, and then there are no reason to say no.
Correct. Yeah. Marta asked another question. Once the project goes to a consultant, is there one person taking care of the project? Yes, that's the project management role, very important role in this. Typically, it's the same person as the key account manager, right? So there's winning the client and then there's managing the client relationship. Both are very equally important in consulting, probably, right? Just signing a contract with a client means very little. You need to actually follow through. So our key account managers, our project managers, stay very close to the specialists. So when Stefano, if Stefano was working for one of my clients, he would actually show me the situation report, show me the option report, and then together we would present this to the client, right? You always
Yeah,
have your key account manager alongside you
definitely yes.
managing that, and sometimes also managing the specialists when it comes to timelines and delivering on point, etc. So thank you. Good engagement. There's some questions I didn't really get to, but we will pick those up individually. I don't want to ignore any, but I apologize. I do want to respect everybody's time. It's now 7 o'clock here in Germany. So let me just share one last slide and we'll talk a little bit about what could come next if you decided to continue. So first of all, I hope you found this useful. What can be next? Discovery webinar check. There's a candidate evaluation questionnaire. There's a very simple online form that we would like you to fill out if you want to continue the process, and that will allow us to have another conversation. So ideally, in the next couple of days, let's be in touch and set up another call with whoever you're in touch with, and then we also want to give you the franchise disclosure document. That's a big PDF that will have lots of information. It will give you lots of answers about earning potential, for example, right? Somebody asked about what can be expected. Well, that's a very important discussion, and we will show you average earnings of our network to be very transparent and allow you then to go into what we would call business planning stage. So if you want to go through this process with us over the next couple of weeks and maybe going into January, we would, help you build your own business plan. Look at the first 3, 4, 5 years of your business and really think about all the moving parts and what you can expect and what's needed to get there. And then at the end of the process, towards the end of the process, we will have a meet the team event where you will meet actually our global management team. Our CEO will be there. Other members from the European or LATAM network will be there to spend time with you, answer final questions, but also get to know you. So for us, this is very much a two-way process now. We need to understand who you are, what you bring to the business, what your vision would be for your own consulting practice, and vice versa. Of course, we want to really open up to you in those conversations to make sure that, the more you learn about this, the better is, your understanding will be about this opportunity and whether it's right for you, not just for the next 2 or 3 years, but hopefully for the next 10, 15, 20 years of your professional life. We want everybody to join here and then stay forever and retire with ERA Group and be happy ever after. So that's really what we're looking for. So it's not for everyone, right? This is not an easy business, but for the right person with the right background, I think it can be a fantastic business. So, and then if you decide to sign a franchise with us, we'll get you through our training program with the Academy, get you onboarded with your coaches and all of that. So just to say, Stefano's kindly volunteered his time tonight. Really appreciate that. He's done a fantastic job. We've got some more voices that we have captured on video. So as a follow-up, I think Emma or somebody will send you a follow-up email with links to a couple of videos. They're just 3, 4 minutes, but it's different franchisees from around the world talking about specific projects, clients. It's very insightful. So I think that will allow you to understand some of the solutions that we're putting in front of clients. So hopefully you'll find some time over the next couple of days to look at that. Yeah, thank you very much. That's all from me today. Stefano, thanks again
It was a
for
pleasure.
sharing. And apologize if I haven't answered all the questions. We'll make sure we'll get to you in the next call and answer all of those. So thanks very much for your time. Have a great evening, everyone, or great afternoon in Latin America. And we're coming to the Latin American conference in March in Rio with the LATAM team. So maybe by that time you can be part of the team, and we'll see you all there. So fantastic. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Emma. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bayard.